The federal and provincial finance ministers tomorrow. Is this just another photo op, or can something actually be accomplished with this meeting tomorrow?
This is not a photo op. I think it's a very important first opportunity for the three representatives of the three governments to sit in a room together and actually compare notes. And we've all been meeting with experts, and it's more important that we should be sitting with people who understand, to the extent anyone does, the housing market and what's driving prices up in this way that's created a lot of fear. And I think it's very healthy that we should be sitting together, and that avoids surprises. And it means we can compare notes and possibly come upon some responsible and effective things we can do.
Do you think actually something tangible will come out of tomorrow's meeting?
Well, I hope so. I think the really important thing is that we're communicating all together in the same room, and I'm going with a list of things that I've mentioned: a vacant unit tax, increasing the supply of affordable rental housing, and having much better data, because right now we have precious little. I'm sure others will come to the meeting with other things they've heard or they've thought of, and I think it's just very healthy that we should be sitting together and working together to see if we can provide some leadership on this and doing it responsibly and doing it effectively.
And then one day after that meeting, you have an exec meeting talking about closing 134 Toronto community housing units at Fir Grove.
Yes. Now that was a particularly unique circumstance at Fir Grove, in that we had the money set aside to repair those units, and when we actually went to start the process of repairing them, they were just not repairable. They were in such bad shape that we had to make the decision, unfortunately, to close them and tear them down and replace them. But I will say, one of the things that is on my list continuously, as you know, is getting the other governments, especially the provincial government, because the federal government has come forward to help us repair social housing units, because housing is housing. I mean, whether they're social housing units or whether they're affordable rental or whether they're ownership units, that's why I'm concerned about vacant units. If a vacant unit is sitting vacant, it's not available to house someone, and that's not a healthy thing given the constraints we face in the city.
How much money do you want from the province?
Well, as much as possible, but we certainly have said it would be a good start if they were to match the significant sums put forward. And we don't have the precise amount that will be made available to Toronto out of the federal budget, but it's going to be significant, and I hope the provincial government will match that and make it flexible enough that we can use it for both social housing, Toronto community housing repair, and also to incent the construction of more affordable rental housing, because we desperately need that in the city of Toronto.
Mayor Tory, Minister Sousa spoke on Thursday about the budget. He announced the budget dates. You're talking now about affordable housing. Did you take anything from those remarks that would be encouraging to you in regards to your asks?
I think the very fact that all the governments are talking about affordable housing, the federal government has come forward with its budget and actually committed a substantial sum of money over the next number of years. And I hope the province is going to match that. And the fact that they're mentioning it, I think, indicates they're seized of the issue. It's a big, big issue. It's got a lot of people very afraid of the future for themselves and for their children. And so I hope the provincial budget contains some real action on that. And we're prepared to be their partners, and I know the federal government is, and now we'll await the budget.
Mayor Tory, some people who live in the City Place area, I know this has been spoken about before, are concerned that the closure of Bay York is going to increase traffic in that area. What do you say to people who are concerned about the increased congestion, the safety concerns, given what the closure of that ramp will do?
Well, I say to people that I'm sorry that people are going to be inconvenienced, drivers, residents, and others, by this ramp being demolished. But the fact is the ramp had outlived its usefulness. And no matter what date we proceeded to demolish the ramp and replace it with a new one, it wouldn't be a good date. Somebody's going to be inconvenienced on that day, whatever the day is. And so you know what I'm like. I want to just get on with these things and get them done. And so I stood up several months ago and actually was forthright enough to say we're going to do this, and I didn't try and duck it. I don't try and duck it today. This work has to be done. The ramp was obsolete, it was falling apart, and we're going to replace it with a better one. And there's no perfect time to do this work, and we're just going to try and manage the situation as best we can, including the considerations of the local residents, which means both the traffic and the noise.
What about working through the night 24 hours to try and get it done quickly?
I had a meeting on this last week, and we're going to be working at some times through the night, 24 hours a day. But of course, there are other times, like the jackhammering, that will be part of the first phase of this, when I suspect my life would be in jeopardy if we were jackhammering 24 hours a day. And so that's what we're doing, is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On some of that noisier work. And we'll be working 24 hours when it's possible for us to do so, so that we can get this done as quickly as possible. I've certainly made it clear I want this done as quickly as it possibly can be done. But the bottom line is honesty just says it has to be done, period, full stop. We can't leave these things as we've done for decades and just say we'll sort it out some other day.
Does something have to be done about the housing market to cool it down?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, in the meetings that I've had, and I don't rely on my own instincts because I'm not an expert in these things, the meetings that I have had with the experts, and I'm told the meetings that others have had with the experts, suggest there's an element of speculation that has found its way into our housing market that is helping push prices up. Some of it is just caused by the desirability of living in Toronto. But so I think the key becomes to identify, which I'm sure we'll try to discuss tomorrow, who is responsible for that speculation and what could you do about it that was responsible and effective. And I'm sure that's what we're going to discuss tomorrow, but I haven't found anybody yet who has the answer and the magic solution, and that's why we're having the meeting.
No tax like BC?
Well, I mean, obviously there's been some discussion of that, but I was interested in one particular day last week, the day we met with the Premier about housing. I read all 4 of Toronto's daily newspapers. And in those, you found probably 10 different points of view as to what should be done. Some in favor of various taxes, some opposed, some suggesting taxes should be done away with, some suggesting do nothing, it's a marketplace. And so that's why this is a very complicated matter, and you have to be very cautious in dealing with it so you don't set off what the Premier herself called at her meeting, unintended consequences that could be very bad for the economy and bad for people ultimately who are in the housing market.
Are you going to remind the provincial finance minister that the province owes you after killing road tolls?
Well, I've tried to do that, and I don't quite put it the way you put it, but close, because in the end, we have to build the transit. We have to build the housing. When it comes to the transit, I had put forward and had very widespread enthusiasm from the City Council for road tolls as a fair and effective way to raise a lot of money to build transit. They said no to that, so I'm just saying, well, now you have to work with me to find ways to finance that transit, because the option of not building the transit is just not on. It's not responsible, and it's not something I want to be associated with, this kind of postponement that's gone on for decades and put us in the mess that we're in.
Thank you.
Okay.